Breaking overnight, the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office is investigating a deadly rollover crash. It happened near Roy and I-25. Right now, deputies have that area blocked off. They say they were called around midnight to assist Sandia Pueblo police. According to deputies, 3 men were inside that vehicle when it rolled over. One was pronounced dead on scene. The other 2 were taken to UNMH with unknown injuries. It's unclear how the crash happened or if alcohol is a factor. We're going to update this story, bringing the very latest as it happens on air and on the KRQE News app.
So this morning, one woman is still pleading for the return of her missing cat. The case took a very bizarre turn when the cat's owner got a haunting voicemail. Listen to this.
He's really nice, and we kind of want to keep him. Don't worry, he'll be okay. We'll take care of him. We'll give him milk. Thank you. Bye. Thanks for your cat.
So a woman received that voice message from a blocked caller. Then she got some text messages of pictures of a cat that looks like her Percy. She's searched now for weeks for Percy, even posted a plea on Craigslist. The woman does not want to show her face for fear that someone is taunting her.
She is a member of our family, and I would say that I appreciate anyone if they have been caring for her, but I would just ask that they return the member of our family.
So the cat disappeared in Los Lunas during a gas stop. Animal Welfare is investigating this right now. Anyone with any information is asked to give authorities a call.
Coming up on 6:04, a man who molested a 6-year-old boy and then killed the boy's father will spend 21 years behind bars. Edward Quintana pleaded guilty to shooting and killing Jason Estrada last year after Estrada confronted him about molesting his son. Turns out that Quintana was a confidential informant for the DEA at the time of the murder. The victim's family is suing the DEA and the Department of Justice. Happening today, we could learn the name of a bicyclist who was killed in a deadly crash near Broadway and MLK yesterday. Police say the driver had a green light. The bicyclist was in the crosswalk and went against the do not cross signal. This is the second bicycle crash in that intersection in the last 3 days. Again, the name of the cyclist has not been released yet.
This morning, we're getting a better look at how long it took for the public to be informed about that massive spill in the Animas River. The EPA recently released this timeline. It shows the public was not alerted until more than 12 hours after the spill. It wasn't until the next morning they realized just how serious the situation was. Wednesday, the EPA revealed they underestimated the water pressure built up inside, and while they knew a blowout was possible, there was no emergency plan to deal with it. To see the entire timeline of the disaster, go to our KRQE News app. We turn out to this morning. Some residents in Phoenix are cleaning up after strong monsoon storms moved across parts of the valley.
Yeah, that strong storm brought with it heavy rain, high wind, and power outages. Look at this. Trees and power poles were knocked down, leaving thousands without electricity. And the National Weather Service reports winds of up to 60 miles per hour. The torrential rains also brought with them flooding in some areas.
And speaking of storms happening today, former President George W. Bush is in New Orleans marking the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina at the same high school where he marked the first anniversary. The visit comes just one day after President Obama's trip to the city. Saturday marks 10 years since the hurricane hit New Orleans, killing close to 2,000 residents. Also happening today, several Democratic presidential candidates, including frontrunner Hillary Clinton, will address DNC members at a meeting in Minneapolis.
Her remarks come on the heels of a new national poll that shows Vice President Joe Biden with a bigger lead than Clinton over Republican frontrunner Donald Trump. Biden has yet to declare, though, a third run for the presidency. Developing now, PNM is requesting to raise its rates by 14%. It filed its request yesterday with the Public Regulation Commission. A previous 12% rate hike attempt earlier this year was turned down by the PRC. PNM says the money raised here could cover the costs for investments in solar and natural gas power plants. Fourth graders and their families will soon be able to visit all of the national parks in New Mexico and the U.S. for free. Petroglyph National Monument is inviting kids to take part in the White House's new Every Kid in a Park program. The goal is to encourage kids and their families to explore and learn about our national treasures. The program begins September 1st, and that pass is good for a year. To get the free pass, we posted a link on the KRQE News app.
Take a look at this new video this morning. Shows a Minnesota officer following an 8-year-old boy out on a joyride. The kid went about 20 miles before he actually goes up to a driveway there, backs out, and then taps the patrol car before parking it. The kid gets out, but also in the car, his 5-year-old foster sister and his 3-year-old brother. The three of them leave with the trooper unharmed. They then return them back to their foster family. No word as to where he was going and how the family didn't know where he was at.
No kidding. So young. Finally, take a look at this dramatic video of an officer trying to help some drivers, just helping drivers in need. A car veered off the road, then smashed right into the officer and other passengers. The video shows just how dangerous it is every time an officer makes a traffic stop. Luckily, there weren't any serious injuries here. You could see one of the boys suffered a bruised leg there. Everyone did walk away from the crash, including the driver. But
wow,
boy, I know.
That
Look
is
how frightened
very
they were.
scary.
You can understand that, boy.
So we start with the father's concern. Today, parents with kids at Alamos Elementary should be getting a letter about this asbestos cleaning on the property. But one parent says he's furious letters were not sent out sooner. Joe Cedillo says he got an unpleasant surprise when he picked up his son from school. This sign right here, he says, was plastered on a door in the main hallway at the elementary. So he went to the main office to ask questions.
I went into the main office and asked for the person in charge and what's going on with that asbestos cleanup. How come parents were notified?
He says that's when he got really upset, when no one seemed to know what was going on. APS officials tell News 13 the plan was always to send out a letter today because the removal does not start until Saturday. They didn't see any harm in sending out a letter the day before. We turn out to this morning. APS's new superintendent, he's still on the job. This despite hours of discussions among school board members on if he should be let go.
In fact, the board held 2 meetings and took almost 10 hours total on the issue between those 2 meetings. The main issue is this controversial hire. APS Superintendent Luis Valentino hired a deputy superintendent, Jason Martinez, a man that we now know dodged a background check with the district while facing charges of sexually assaulting kids. Martinez resigned, and it's up to the school board to decide if Valentino also needs to go. So after 4.5 hours in a closed-door meeting yesterday, the board let the public in to announce another meeting.
The board will be setting a meeting for Monday at 7 a.m., in which time a final determination regarding this review will be made. That's a statement from the APS board.
In a statement, the Public Education Department stressed the importance of resolving this quickly and decisively so the board can turn its attention to the students.
And school board member Peggy Mueller-Aragon, she's been sitting out of the meeting, saying they should be public. Former board member Marty Esquivel says her doing so makes the decision even that much harder. That's because without her vote, the decision could be split 3-3. Esquivel tells News 13 he thinks the board is past due on a decision, but he also says the board is probably struggling because they have no outside investigator helping them out on this. Their only employee is Valentino, who's at the center of it all.
So the board is a little hamstrung in terms of how did you gather your facts here? The decision to terminate him could be very expensive. The decision to discipline him could be politically explosive, which could lead to a public revolt.
So far, the board has not hired an independent investigator to look at the issues.
The man at the center of that scandal is behind bars this morning. Former APS Deputy Superintendent Jason Martinez faced a judge Thursday for violating the conditions of release on sex abuse charges. He was never supposed to leave Colorado. His attorneys claimed that Martinez was telecommuting with APS after being hired here, but prosecutors quickly fired back, saying his APS key card was used multiple times between July and August. We have some video here from a board meeting archive from August 5th, and you can see clearly Martinez was addressing the board here in Albuquerque. The judge set his bond at $200,000. We have full coverage on the KRQE News app, including a timeline of all the recent superintendents and the full interview with Valentino. Improving their tactics. A number of firefighters from across New Mexico now know more about a new technique for fighting fires.
Yeah, we told you earlier this week about slicers. It's a new firefighting approach based on scientific research. So this week, an international firefighter group held their first official class for the new technique here in New Mexico. News 13's Catherine Mazzone is here with the details. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Crystal. Firefighters say the slicers technique is an advancement in their profession that could make their job safer.
We've been operating under really a lack of knowledge for the last, for as long as the fire service has been around. And now UL and NIST have done the research and the studies to really provide us with facts that really change things a little bit.
Jim Silvernail is with the International Society of Fire Service Instructors. He says the class highlights science out of the Federal Technology Agency NIST and safety science company UL. Silvernail explains that science will give firefighters better perspective on what they do. The class also offers suggestions for tactical and strategic changes for fighting structure fires. The Los Alamos Fire Department invited Silvernail to teach the class. Firefighter Rick Gonzalez says he wants New Mexico firefighters to be trained in the new technique for their safety and to better serve the public.
It's an exciting time for us in the fire service. Things are improving, changing. There's more knowledge.
Despite the science, Silvernail says there's still some resistance to slicers, largely because the fire service is so steeped in tradition. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Catherine. A grant is helping ISFSI to teach 100 classes for free. That's 2 classes for each state in the U.S.
Developing right now, we got to move on to this. Asian stocks are up as we start the new day, and that is good news for stocks in the U.S. Market analysts say Japan is leading the pack in Asia, but Shanghai shares, they're not far behind. Analysts say the Asian markets are taking cues from Wall Street, where the Dow gained 2.3% yesterday, and that is a big recoup over just over a week of shaky performances. People in Florida are gearing up for Tropical Storm Erica. This is some of the damage that's been done already. They're stocking up on supplies as the storm heads toward the Sunshine State. Right now, the storm is over Puerto Rico, and it's expected to hit the Dominican Republic today. Meanwhile, authorities on the island of Dominica say at least 4 people have reportedly been killed by the storm. More than a dozen are missing. This storm is expected to make landfall on Florida's coast by Monday and will likely remain a tropical storm.
Turn now to some breaking overnight news. This morning, a college campus in Georgia will be back up and running after a lockdown last night. Authorities say Christopher Starks, who was a student at Savannah State University, was shot and killed near the Student Union building. Police say they do not have a suspect in custody. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation will help in this investigation. Meanwhile, classes are delayed until 10 o'clock this morning. We move on to more on the carefully choreographed slaying of 2 journalists. The husband of the 3rd WDBJ shooting victim says his wife has a long road to recovery. Vicki Gardner was being interviewed in a live broadcast by reporter Allison Parker and cameraman Adam Ward when the gunman opened fire. The gunman has been identified as this man right here, a former WDBJ reporter, Vester Flanagan. He later killed himself. The victim's husband, Tim, says she was shot in the back and lost a kidney and part of her colon. He says it will take her about 3 months to physically recover from the shooting.
6:38 now. APD continues its search for more suspects in a dangerous stunt that shut down I-25. Happened over the weekend. Police believe 18-year-old Ivan Guardado Fuentes was driving the black truck doing donuts on the interstate and blocking traffic. He appeared in court yesterday, charged with felony assault with a deadly weapon because police say he pointed a gun at witnesses afterward. The judge set his bond at $5,000.
New details this morning. The firefighter who hung up on a 911 caller cannot work as a dispatcher in New Mexico, at least for now. It's all because of this. Take a look.
Is he breathing?
He's barely breathing. How many times do I tell you?
Okay, you know what, ma'am? You could deal with yourself. I'm not going to deal with this, okay?
No, my friend is dying.
The dispatcher right there is Matthew Sanchez. He's hanging up on a teen who is trying to help 17-year-old Jaden Chavez Silver, who had been shot that night. Sanchez resigned from the department. His license was suspended. The Department of Health has now revoked it. He can still file an appeal, though. Chavez Silver later died. 3 suspects have been arrested for the killing.
Parents say a joke may have gone too far, causing concern when a strange van was seen roaming the streets in California. Parents in Sacramento say it had blackened out windows, no license plate. The van also said free candy on the side and was seen around town in the last few days. Some began posting the picture of it on social media sites like nextdoor.com too, and they started asking questions. It turns out the van belongs to a family friend of that woman. She says the driver was on his way to Burning Man in Nevada when he was passing through San Francisco. That event is said to celebrate art and self-expression. The van has since left the area.